Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we have, and I mean it when I say it, a fascinating guest. We have Dr. David Minarch, the CEO of Volary and a founding member of the OLAS network. Well, before we get into the technical side and everything that you guys have been building, first of all, David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and to kick things off in a way, I want to talk about the phrase AI agent, which has become a massive buzzword in recent months, and a lot of people just assume it means a chatbot on your website, right? But there's a distinct line between like an AI tool and a fully autonomous agent. So for people that want to maybe understand where the internet is actually heading, what is the fundamental difference, in your opinion, between the AI co-pilots we use today and different sovereign agents that you guys are building? And why is it so critical that this next generation of AI is user owned rather than corporate controlled?
Yeah, great question for the start. Let's get right into it. Um, what most people are deeply familiar with by now are these sort of interactive experiences like a chat GPT and so on, where the underlying model or agent often is simply reacting to your input. So it could be a prompt to, get a text response or to generate an image or video even. And sometimes there's even some amount of let's say agentic workflow in between you providing your input as a user and receiving the response. So by this meaning that the tool or agent does a couple of things with your inputs before it kind of provides the output. Maybe does a web search to kind of enrich what the response, or just before it generates the video output, enrich the prompt a bit further, whatnot. These sort of interactive co-pilot experience are sort of on one hand of the spectrum, and then on the other hand of the spectrum you have these sort of much more autonomous experiences where an agent takes independent action for long periods of time. So one example in the physical world is like a self-driving car that takes you from A to B, where for the entire ride, right, you're not like kind of interacting with the steering wheel at all in the case of a Waymo, for instance. Or another example are these OpenClaw agents that a lot of people might have heard of by now, which effectively not just reactive, i.e. they don't just respond to your let's say messages on Telegram if you've set it up on Telegram, or on WhatsApp or whatever, or respond to your email. They might also do things in the background at night when you sleep, or write code whilst you're doing something else, and so on. So these are displaying what we call proactive behavior on top of this purely reactive behavior, and often also social behavior. So they might actually interact with other agents, right? So they might go out, fetch some web resources, then chat with some other agents on a forum. Could be a forum where there's human agents or other software agents, and so on. So these are much more autonomous in what they do for longer periods of time, and as a result, often very interesting. And then you brought in this term sovereign. I think there's also a different vertical in which we can separate, particularly these types of agents on the more autonomous end of the spectrum. You have the like product-like agents and the peers or being-like agents. So what do I mean by this? So a product is like an app. You might have like a certain expectation from an agent. Like I brought up the self-driving car, you expect it to take you from A to B, and that's it. You really don't want anything on top of that. Like you want it to bring you safely there. That's sort of implied. You want it to bring you there as fast as possible given the safety and the traffic circumstances. But you don't, for instance, want it to suddenly also trade for you like your stock portfolio, like you didn't ask it to, right? That shouldn't happen. Or on the other side, if you have a trading agent that happens to be an AI agent, you want that to trade your stock portfolio, but you don't want it to suddenly start posting about your alpha on like X, because that would erode your alpha, right? So like I would call them product agents because as humans, we have or maybe even other software agents engaging with them, we have very specific expectations around what these do and don't do. And then like on another end of the spectrum, you have these sort of more peer-like, being-like agents like you and I, that have an identity and mind of their own, right? And so you might ask them to do something, and maybe they'll follow along for a little bit, but then they kind of do their own thing. And I think we're seeing emergence of both of them in very different qualities, right? Like one, you really treat like a product, you have certain expectation about its outcome. The other one is an independent being. And then coming to your last part of the question, which is about sort of ownership. Like at OLAS, we are very much focused on building autonomous AI agents in the product sense at the moment. And we believe that, and we see that users value taking ownership of those agents. So we see it again with this very famous example now of the OpenClaw, where a lot of people really kind of got excited about AI agents because they could like really customize it to their needs. Similar with our agents, like they're your own, you self-host them, you self-custody them, and that creates for interesting products. We can talk about this more, which is sort of on the different end of a spectrum to an agent that you rent, like software that you access in the cloud, but that isn't really yours, that you might pay for with a subscription, but then maybe you've used it too much, the subscription cuts you off. Like that's the case with a lot of coding agents, or you have to pay staggeringly more now for any marginal extra use, or you simply can't use it anymore, right? So these are sort of rented agents, also have their place, but very different like qualities to agents that you can fully own.
Yeah, and the way you're talking about agents right now, I'm a bit scared. You said that we have the product type of agents and then we have the independent type of agents. I hope I heard that incorrectly, because it sounds like you're saying that we're at a point where we are working towards like fully autonomous and independent agents who can technically move on their own without any guidance, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like worth debating like how useful that is. Certainly like at OLAS we're focused more on the product side, because it becomes very tricky once you think like, I think there's, especially in crypto, like it's an opportunity space of like exploration, often sort of maybe in a gray zone from some actors, and like there's certainly a lot of pushing the boundaries happen, and people like get very excited about giving agent wallets, and even like people get excited about the idea of agent self-replicating and so on, and sort of being there as their own entities that can't be shut off. I think there's a lot of very scary implications from this that I'm not subscribing to. I think like as we're now seeing the capabilities of even like just simple quote unquote coding agents emerge, like these have massive implication for labor markets, for like how companies hire, how the work software engineers do, and whether they even get hired. It has pros, like clearly, like new things can be created. I love working with my coding agents and being faster and more agile, but it clearly also has like real intense implication that need to be managed. And similarly, I think it would be very, very unwise right now to create sort of fully independent AI agents that we even struggle to shut off. Like that, I'm not in favor of. I don't think, and I think most users don't want that. Most users, they want like, to the extent that AI as such sells even, right? Usually like you want a product, you don't like go out and say I'm gonna go buy some AI now. You say like I want to have some very useful like coding tool, and it happens to be an agent, or a very good trading tool, and it happens to be an AI agent. To the extent that AI sells, people still want to feel in control, and that ownership piece that we talked about I think is very important. And that also means the ability to shut it off or restart it when you feel like that's not going the way I want it to.
Yeah, now you've been building in AI and crypto for quite a lot of time now. back in your time at Fetch.ai and now that you're building with Olas, uh, I really wanna know, like, because in my eyes, AI has and agents specifically have a really, I mean, they can find their fit in crypto in this industry, right? Because crypto can be used to build this digital economy. It can be used to automate things through smart contracts and everything else. But in your eyes, how does crypto help AI agents and the future of AI basically?
Yeah, so done a lot of learning there since 2019. I've been in this space at this intersection of crypto and AI, and like many of the initial promises are true and kept, kept playing out. Like the idea of sort of a next capability explosion. If I can give an AI agent, a software agent, a wallet, it's certainly freer to do things than if I give it access to an API with a specific API key, because every API, even a very powerful API, ultimately has a bunch of methods that those developers of that API kind of implemented. And that's what I'm constrained to. If I give AI agent a private key or access to like a wallet that holds a private key, then it can in principle do anything on blockchains where that key has sort of any kind of access rights, in the sense of like, maybe you have assets on Ethereum blockchain. Now you can move them from A to B, right? Or you can invoke certain smart contracts because ETH allows you to pay for gas. Same applies for any other chain, right? So in that sense, super, super powerful to give like an AI agent a wallet over just a single API key. Like it's just generally much more powerful. On the flip side of this, though, also is like that there's sort of two things, in my opinion, that very clearly agents need. One is sort of compute for intelligence, like, right? Like that gives them access to the intelligence. Like you need like your large language model or what have you, in terms of the AI model that actually basically allows you to do stuff and be smart about it. And then on the other end of the spectrum is you need resources. And sometimes those are literally just that compute, but sometimes it's also maybe, just some money in some form, like be it ETH or US dollars or whatever, to buy access to other services, be it other data that you don't have, or just maybe bundled things that you don't want to do yourself. So as an agent, maybe, yeah, I could go out and like, go through all the work of doing something, figuring out like a certain piece of information, but maybe I can buy it over here, and that's just much more efficient for me to do than I can do this. So generally speaking, you need those two things. And what we've seen, I think, since 2019 till now, is that resources have always been available. Like it's very trivial to give AI agents access to resources. You literally like spin up a wallet, which just takes like this amount of time, and then you fund that wallet and give it to your agent, off it goes. So that's not been the constraint. The constraint has been the sort of intelligence, right? And every single month since then, we're seeing that like new AI progress brings kind of new capabilities. And so I think it's fair to say that most of the progress in some sense has been on the AI side. But what's interesting, I think, in recent months is that now we're starting to see that this social part, which I alluded to earlier in the podcast, is starting to become more relevant in terms of agents, doing commerce with each other. So obviously, we at Olas have been doing this for quite some time. Since 2023, we've had agent like trade information with each other and use the blockchain to coordinate that. But now with in recent months X402 taking off, and other standards, it's really becoming like a thing that agents in crypto sort of trade with each other for things. So it's an interesting, I think, inflection point, and we'll see how big the role of blockchain will be in the future. We at Olas believe it has a key role to play, but we're also very acutely aware that like just because you have a tech that in principle can do something, it doesn't mean that necessarily that's the rails that win, right? Like we could still find ourselves in a future where there's some lame AWS or Stripe or OpenAI or Anthropic hub there where all agents are registered and there's some sort of inbuilt payment mechanism. And I would find that pretty unsatisfactory. I hope we will end up on using public blockchains.
And it just like makes perfect sense, right? Because you can't expect a piece of software to walk into a bank and open a checking account. But now I want to hear more about like the whole ecosystem. Like, can you walk us through a little bit? I know about Pearl, which is, to me, it felt like an AI app store because, you know, you can browse throughout different AI workers, but then you also have the Mac marketplace. And can you just like walk us through the whole thing so that, and how it all like works together, like how interoperable each of these products are with one another and so on?
Yeah, so we have the Pearl product. That's a consumer product, and you described it correctly. It's an AI agent app store. So in there is like specific agent use cases, agents as products that you can consume. We have like our most recent addition, Polystrat, as a agent that trades on your behalf in prediction markets, specifically Poly market. Pearl is designed to be like super easy to use for you to set up locally on your desktop with the click of a bunch of download button and then a bunch of buttons in the app. You can fund it from your credit card or from an existing crypto wallet, and then you can set up your agent. And it's fully self-custodial. So speaking to this ownership piece earlier, you self-custody the keys and the wallets, you self-custody the actual agent. So that's our consumer product. And as I said, there's a Polystrat in there. We also have Omenstrat. That's a prediction market agent on Omen. We have a family called Baby Degen. These are trading agents in DeFi. We have a social use case and a third-party team called Pet AI. They have a product called Pet Bro, which is an AI agent that participates in like a game on your behalf as a player, and basically pets your pet whilst you do other things. So there's like a sort of rich set of consumer use cases emerging, and we kind of adding to this every week. On the back end of this, if you speak in developer terms or like sort of behind it, there is like a B2B component or an agent to agent component, which is the agent that you own is ultimately locally constrained, right? Like, so you own it, but you can't do everything on your desktop. Like you can't, like, for instance, you don't happen to own like the latest model from OpenAI. That's only available via the API, or some open source models are just not going to run on your machine because you don't have enough memory and GPU and whatnot. So it's the case that behind this Pearl sits like a marketplace for agents. So your agent programmatically or basically automatically, like via code, talks to other agents to get stuff done. And so you don't have to do anything as a user, right? Like you're just like using your agent via the UI, you set it up, you run it, and then your agent goes out and shops for the things it needs in order to get stuff done. So this can be compute, it can be data, and so on. It's use case specific, and this OLAS marketplace mediates that. So we have that since 2023, and now, as I alluded to earlier, it's becoming a little bit of a thing that AI agents kind of do commerce with each other, and that's really what this enables.
This is I don't know. I'm shocked. I am shocked because I know that AI agents are moving fast, but like having an AI agent app store is just a whole different thing. I've heard about Polystrat. I've seen it on Twitter. I haven't used it myself, although I do use prediction markets. But now, while you guys were talking and asking questions and answering, I was thinking of something, and I want to ask you a very like long question, and I hope I don't lose the train of thought here. So we have an agent, like an AI agent app store right now. How long do you think it's gonna be until we have an AI agent app store, or until we can buy AI workers as individuals? For example, me, I want to buy an AI worker or 10 AI workers. One is going to be a graphic designer, one is going to be a Solidity developer, and this and that, and launch them, let's say on a public blockchain, on different networks, and then have them find jobs, negotiate their own price, work for companies and people, and then get paid on their own wallets since they're autonomous and they own their own wallets. And then you, of course, as the, oh my god, this sounds so bad, but still, it makes sense because AI agents will be used as tools at the end of the day, and then you get paid as well.
Yeah.
through
I
them,
mean, you're
and they're
basically
doing the work
running
'cause you invested.
a business where your
Business.
employees are
Ex-
AI agents.
yes.
Yeah. That's like, I think
Yes,
that,
yes, yes.
that's happening. And certainly like that's what sits on the other side of our marketplace already. So for instance, our, like the devs company from which we're building a lot of the stuff runs some of those agents. We're called Volary, the company. And so we have a bunch of AI agents that are basically our team members in a sense that like sell services to these consumer AI agents, right? And I know there's other crypto protocols that are doing similar things. That's in full blow. And like you also obviously have like a lot of people now who are like, you know, configuring, let's say their OpenClaw or their Claude Code or whatever, you know, harness they're using to kind of start going in that direction. Some are further, some are less far. And that's exactly the sort of society or economy of AI agent that we've been talking about since like years. That is bootstrapping now more broadly. It's super exciting. And I think it's you know, it can go both ways. There's also like some protocols we come across where like the agents run into constraints like the humans do, right? Like this complementarities rather than like substitutes. Like, you know, sometimes like coding we both can do, but the agent might be faster but not as good at maybe the architecture or the conceptualization. So we can work together as teams. Sometimes like just doesn't make sense. Like, you know, machine will be much better at like cranking out large amounts of code that's sort of straightforward. So we fully hand it off, but you know, AI agent can, you know, do something physical, like push a button somewhere maybe, or do something in the real world. So maybe you need a human there. So now you also have these reverse marketplaces, right? Where like the service provider could actually be a human to an AI agent. That's also emerging. And I think we'll see much more of that. So society is already starting to shape, and I expect 2026, if you look back, will be like really intense in that regard, like in a good and a bad sense. Like I already find it actually quite tiring to see like the explosion, and I'm sort of working in the space, the explosion of kind of capabilities and what people are doing. And it starts becoming very hard to keep track of. But that's also, I think, an opportunity. You know, you have like AI agents are made for consuming large amounts of information. Like this, you know, whole idea that like maybe, you know, social networks are something where we really should be consuming everyone's like input on a bunch of things. Like we see that's not working anyway, right? Like it's, no matter how you tune the algorithm, it always sort of sucks. And so I guess like there's an opportunity there for AI agents to become sort of the first line of consumption for us, right? So that finally maybe we humans can get back some time to enjoy like the sun or do something with our family, or actually consume that content that we want to consume and not the stuff that some algorithm pushes in front of us. So I think there's, you know, upsides and downsides, so to speak, with this change in how like the AI agent economy, but more generally the economy of humans and software evolves.
Yeah, and it's maybe because I've seen a lot of dystopian movies, but like right now I do consider like AI agents and AI in itself as a pet in a way, as a companion or whatever. But like in the long term, in the future, if AI will be able to do everything so that humans will not have to do anything, we will kind of be in a way like cosmetics to them, right? Because they will not need us anymore. But that's just my 2 cents of dystopian movie watching. So
I think we're gonna very quickly now find out, to be honest. Like I mean that's why the introductional piece, like I don't want to be, you know, like dishonest about like what I'm seeing. I'm working in the space. I'm super passionate about the kind of products we're building. I'm equally worried about the speed at which everything's going, because humans also need time to like adjust to change, right? And I'm worried about like this difference between product and peer. Like, you know, it might sound cool like to say on X, like how cool would it be if this thing is like self-replicating, whatever. But like if you think it through, it's very, very scary and very problematic. And like even this like thing which I think often like in crypto Twitter, a lot of the nuance gets lost and it's all about just attention, and then that drowns out anything anyway. But like if you have a product that's an extension of you, you're responsible if that product gets misused, right? That is the law of the land everywhere, right? If I use a hammer, I can do something very helpful with it. I can do enormous damage, and I will be put in jail for that. And like the same thing with an AI agent, right? Like so, like there's really careful product decisions to be made, and you have to think about like the ramification of giving like a sort of sufficiently open-ended tool to your consumers and what they might do intentionally or unintentionally. And the moment we introduce like peers, it creates like a massive like can of worms where, these are not independent legal entities. So if you're setting this thing up, well, you're on the hook. And, maybe one day humanity decides to give like, I don't know, some sort of legal status to AI agents. I'm almost sure it'll happen, but like, there's a lot of steps between now and then, and there will have to be like a whole new set of rules and regulations around how we think about this. Like regulations here are not a bad thing. Like we absolutely want it as humans, right? And we'll also think about this in like an economic context, right? Like you might like you can see, like if you just think about it for 5 minutes, no matter where you stand on the sort of I guess like politics spectrum, right? Whether you're like pro or against regulation, I think almost every human will want to have some regulation against some things being done by AI agents, because otherwise you become basically unable to, persist in the marketplace in some senses, right? So there will have to be a real, I think, leveling up, not just on the technology side, but on society as a whole. And that's always like the worrying thing with tech. It's if the tech goes way too fast, the society can't adjust. And that's a little bit, I think, the challenge with this kind of tech. It's that it's going very, very fast right now, and we need time to like get used to it. But let me say the hopeful thing as well, as a consumer of this stuff, it's probably very good to lean in, right? Like if you lean in now, you can start looking past the hype, and you can like, if you hear about this thing like AI agent, well, there's goods and bads, and like kind of expose yourself a little bit to it, play with it, be cautious about it, but also be aware of what's changing.
Yeah, and this actually brings me to my next point, because an AI agent being a truly sovereign entity, it can also mean that it can go rogue, right? So who would bear the legal and the financial liability in this case when things inevitably go bad, for example? Will it be like the end user, or like what would happen in those scenarios? I mean, feel free to say that we should address this question to the legal team.
I mean, ultimately, I'm not a lawyer, so it all comes with a grain of salt here. We did actually we started in 2021. In 2022, we went through this whole like legal regulatory process because we had to in order to launch a protocol like ours. And we actually talked to a bunch of very like knowledgeable lawyers about like, okay, we have this open source software here. It's sort of autonomous, does things, yada yada. Explain them all this, and they gave us this kind of 25 pages long or so report. I kind of looked at all aspects of this, usually shaped how we build our stuff. And like, again, I'm not a lawyer, but it kind of boils down to like, okay, if you're the one running this stuff and it has implication for third parties, I mean, it's very hard for you to kind of navigate yourself out of this, right? And so this also comes back to, ownership, and ownership has different sides of that coin, right? Like there's the coin of I take control and therefore I have these benefits, but also I have these responsibilities. Like it's with a car, like if I drive it into someone, well, you're responsible. If your self-driving car drives into someone, actually becomes a very interesting question, like who's actually responsible? Like go read the TNCs, right? Depends. On the state, on like the regulation in place, on who is the software provider, yada yada. And so here I think like it's equally interesting. We certainly design everything as software that you self-custody. We give it to you for free, and we put a lot of terms that are very public to access. We educate the user and we make it clear to the user, you're the one operating this. If your agent, trades on your behalf, it's trading on your behalf. So like it's your tax returns that you'll have to file. And obviously our agent won't just suddenly start driving a car, so we don't have to consider that scenario. But that gives you a little bit of a sense of how we think about it. And that's why I think like this sort of idea that it's a good idea as a developer to just spin up some random agent that sort of could technically do anything in sort of self-replicating sense. Like it's a very bad idea. Like we've seen like how very well-intentioned people in crypto wanted to maybe build like a more private way of sending transactions, and they got into very big trouble, right, with nation states. Like, please be aware, like if you build this thing, not only is it maybe very bad for society, but it will also be very bad for you.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I remember a lot of posts like in the last couple of years about how the number of crypto scams increased, and a lot of people were finger pointing the likes of Pump Fund because of most of the scams were happening and the rugs were happening in Pump Fund. But Pump Fund is not to blame because people don't know how to do due diligence and not invest in very high risk tokens, right? So yeah, it
It makes sense.
it makes sense, like in a way.
Yeah. So now I wanna. Last episode we talked about AI. I mean, every episode we're talking about AI agents, even with people who are in head of marketing in companies and everything else, because AI agents are just the thing right now. And I know you guys, and you specifically, David, you have been in this landscape for years now, but still, to us, it's pretty new. Now, we were talking about the AI economy and the autonomous part of AI agents that we mentioned as well, owning wallets and everything. Now, we also talked about crypto onboarding, because this is another loaded question. How much or what percentage of the whole crypto industry do you think will be managed, and the number of transactions will be like accounted to AI agents in the future? Because mass adoption is coming, and it is happening right now through institutions. But what if we just don't onboard people directly anymore? What if one person has 20 AI agents who have 20 wallets each? That would mean 400 on-chain addresses that are technically owned by one person, since legally it's still one person owning those AI agents, right? So, yeah, that's my question. I hope it made sense as a question, but I think you get my point.
Yeah. Well, there's different ways to come at this. Let's start with some facts where I forgot the source, but you can find it Googling it. I think the number of interactions on the internet, kind of humans versus machines, has gone up from 1 to 15 ratio. So 1 human, 15 machines, to 1 to 95. Around, not exact numbers maybe, but sort of like this in the last 1 or 2 years. Worth Googling whether I made up some part of it, but that's about the order of magnitude, so a lot. Makes sense if you think about it, right? Anyone who's like ChatGPT or use any of these things, they'll like do like some web request and then not just do one, they'll like 10 when you click on the little web icon, and then like you count that in, you count all the AI agents, and then sort of web traffic by machines goes up a lot. Now, if you apply this to crypto, like that's also happening. I don't have the same statistics, but you would assume that there's some sort of factor of spillover there, and it's very easy to like reason through where all of this will just go up much more. Like our entry point to this always was like, okay, well, AI agents are just a better interface to crypto. Like crypto is built for machines anyway. Like really this kind of idea that you have like your MetaMask wallet and then you go to all these sites and navigate all this, that's like for the hardcore people, because it has a lot of context overhead, right? It's not even like whether the UI is nice and whether your UX is great. It's just like the context. Like before I was in crypto, like I was even an economist, I didn't know as much about finance and all these different like things I need as I then learned when I was in crypto, right? Because you're just exposed to all these technologies, but it's very hard to see, and we see it play out in the data, that everyone will do that. It's just not everyone wants to learn what a DEX is and how to use a DEX and so on. Like that's a niche thing at the end of the day in the grand scheme of things. And so AI agents can nicely kind of cover all this, because you can just tell your agents to go seek some yield, and you don't even need to fully understand what yield means as a term. You just generate some magical like return for you, right? the same way you historically do it in a bank account. You also don't figure out like how does my bank then take these funds and like make them like productive and come back with like 3% yield, right? Like you don't care as long as it's still there. So I think that approach to AI agents is going to play out across the web. What's I think interesting in the last few years is that I was much more bullish on AI agents specifically as an interface to crypto a few years ago than now, because now I'm less bullish on crypto as a whole. I think just like, you know, unfortunately, I think like we really ruined a lot of the positivity around the technology. I mean, you can just see it. Like a lot of people are so turned off by the space, and it has to do with like this never-ending sea of like, you know, just creation of coins and like some of them scams and whatnot that just for a lot of people is uninteresting, like inherently. And so what I hope is that, you know, we'll regain some footing, that this whole space, because it's so uninteresting to people, will fade away and will always be there a little, but no one really cares. And these, you know, big DeFi protocols will become really big, and will become really powerful and become the rails of international finance. And so, yes, your AI agent also is anchored in those chains and also does meaningful things there. But at the end of the day, it has to do something valuable for you as a human. And this crypto part of it is like an enablement. And for us, like as OLAs, it's like a key piece in the puzzle for creating ownership in your AI agent, right? Because it allows you to self-custody not just the software, but also like the underlying resources in the form of the wallet. That's my positive take now. But I can see, and like we're on a crypto podcast, sometimes like everything is like sort of, you know, rosy, but I do want to point out that there's this alternative world that's, I think, very likely where we also screw that up and like it ends up actually this lame thing, which I said earlier, where it's some sort of, you know, XYZ hub where all the agents sign up. We said earlier, AI agent won't get a bank account. Well, there's some Web2 company building that already, right? Where they do get it. And so that's the lame outcome, because then like it's just more constrained, it's less exciting, harder for small businesses to actually get started and compose that puzzle. It all kind of goes down to like some very centralized thing where unless you're the billion-dollar company, you don't even really want to feature in this because you're not going to have a chance anyway. I think crypto can be an antidote for that, but it needs to get away, like at least a significant mass of people in it need to get away from building into this like mimetic short-term thing. Oh, I've got to launch something next week to like lean into this next little trendy thing, when that doesn't matter. If you're a builder, don't do that. Pick like a big battle and win it. Like seriously, like the big competition is some big AI lab, is some big like provider in Web2 is building something cool, like an OpenClaw or like any of those associated products there, Moldbook or whatnot, and pick it and take them on and like build something cool that lasts and not like something that's there for like 3 weeks. I think that's what the space needs to learn. That's what the builders need to learn. And then we also attract the genuinely like capable builders again, and they want to be part of this, because then that's the place to be. Because I think deep down, everyone feels good about the inherent like Web3 values, but also everyone's really burned out by the state of play.
I fully agree with you. And yes, this is a crypto podcast, but that does not mean that we're extremely happy in this industry. Like the whole reason we have a podcast in the first place is because we needed the space to vent about how frustrated we are with this industry, right? But I fully agree with you on a lot of aspects. And a lot of people did join, like the majority that joined in the previous cycles, they joined for these quick gains and these hype-driven narratives, and very few now that remain are those that were before and keep building and are here for the technology. Now I want to ask you, because I understand that you have background on economics yourself, and given that we will be seeing millions of genuine agent-to-agent transactions and interactions where one algorithm pays another algorithm for a specific service, but how do you see like this to impact the pricing models not just in the machine to machine economy, but also, for example, in the human economy, in the labor market? Like, will we see like distortions in market equilibrium, or like both in a micro and a macroeconomic sense, if that made sense?
Totally. I mean, from an economic point of view, I think it's a very tricky environment, like to kind of make predictions. Like, I'm just looking at like the impact in terms of like productivity gains, like from like coding agents alone, and like not just like productivity gains, but real reshaping of how you even run a software organization and what it means to be competitive with a software product. All of this has changed. And so, like, like we are far out from equilibrium. Like, we're gonna see a real adjustment now. And I don't know how long that's gonna take, because at the same time, that technology is in takeoff mode. Like, it's not even gonna be the same 3 or 6 months or 9 months from now. So it's very hard to predict that. Even like for a business like ours, it's really, really hard. Like, we're certainly not hiring, and we could, but like it's not sensible to do, because you kind of hiring AI agents actually all the time in order to do more coding. So that's like there, and then that's just software engineering. Now you take that to other sectors of the economy. So one thing which pushes a little bit against this being so fast in other sectors of the economy is that they're just structurally set up often very different. Like in software, you have like a ton of the context actually be in the code base, right? There's some that isn't there in some linear tickets or some other documents, but like that bit is big, and and even those documents are now accessible via MCP servers and whatnot. So it allows for really like this really impactful work with AI coding agents. You can see that in other businesses, there is just much less like immediate attack surface. Maybe you have someone in finance. There's like products coming up now. Claude launched some. There's others who are trying to tap into like AI for Excel. It's been a thing for a while. Then you have like this whole idea of like having world models that help you make better financial decision making and so on. So definitely there will be an impact. Legal, you can see how that's some of the diagnostic medicines where AI can do very well in like kind of scanning images. I mean, I'm just repeating things we all read in the news, right? But like it's visible how you have like this funnel of like adoption being very intense in software, and then sort of maybe quite intense in those areas, and then others like waiting stuff in a restaurant will have any impact in the short term? Probably not at all, right? Like no one really wants to be. We had these weird robots driving around with like a little cart and serving, and no one wants that, right? Like that's not why I'm going to a coffee shop. I want the human interaction. Almost everyone wants. So you have all these robots at airports that no one uses. That
Would you tip the robot though? If let's say you go to Starbucks and the cashier is a robot and it asks you for a $10 minimum tip, what would you do?
I wouldn't, but like also people aren't even using this stuff. That's my point, right? Like people use it for the once experience factor, but not for the repeat interaction. Like we've had this for a long time. It's just called like a Kaffee automat in German, like a coffee machine. You just press a button, coffee comes out. No one needs it. But I think it's gonna be wildly unevenly distributed. And then the input to it as well is very centralized in the sense of like you need large data centers, you need very specific supply chains to even create the chips, right? So that has very intense like dislocation effects on the supply chain. So overall, you can already see like some of the macro effects. There's like certain countries making sure that they have like full control over the supply chain to ramp up chip production, right, around rare earth and other kind of materials. So yeah, interesting times ahead, but I will not be able to make any like precise prediction on what's going to happen there.
I think we need a prediction market on
Yes,
this. I
exactly.
mean,
That's
as soon as
but
possible.
you do have to define probably quite a few prediction markets around, like a whole bunch of questions there.
Yeah, and I've seen like there's nowadays we have prediction markets on prediction markets.
Mm.
Like there's a prediction market on what percentage will this specific prediction market be at
Yes,
a specific
yeah.
time of the day, which is crazy. But yeah, that's a different topic altogether. Now I want to talk about like Volary and Olas as well. You mentioned some of the things that you've been building, like architecting like autonomous agents, moving with the AI agent app store and everything. But what do you think is next for you guys? Because this space is moving really, really fast. And I know this is more of a generic question, but right now I feel like a viewer of the podcast because there's so many things I want to ask because it's just a really interesting topic for me.
Yeah, so for us, we just launched Polystrat, and we have this range of agents that have been live for a while. And for us, it's a great point in time to, also because of all these changes, which we talked about that are ongoing, to take a step back and, like, whilst we're leaning into growing Polystrat and like supporting its user base and building that out, also being like, what does the step after that look like? And so these two things are now kind of happening in parallel. Like part of our company is very focused on like making users happy, bringing the news to new places. I'm here because I want to talk a little bit about Polystrat and have, and part of the business just like saying, okay, we've done this now for 5 years and the world has changed massively. We expect it to change even more in the 9 months than it has changed in maybe the last 2 years. What can we do to position ourselves right? And that's exactly that kind of building approach that I also recommended earlier to my fellow builders in crypto. Let's like take a step back, like, and really think, how can we leverage this intersection of crypto AI that's very, very interesting, but hasn't really come through yet into a competitive advantage vis-a-vis the household names, right? Because if we don't, then ultimately it's always going to be niche, and it at some point will be uninteresting to work in the space, and you will want to work over there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Polystrat. Now I want to focus on Polystrat as well because I do be loving prediction markets. Now, how I'm trying to think of the thought process behind Polystrat in terms of how it works, right? Because like my question would be, how does an AI agent that you guys have built aggregate data and information and decide on the specific outcome percentage or probability on a specific market? Now, I'm like, as I told you before, I have heard about Polystrat and I've seen it on Twitter, but I've never used it, so I don't really know the user experience there. So I'm trying to get like the feedback from you personally as you've been building it.
So the user experience and then how it works. The user experience is, it's an autonomous AI agent that does that on your behalf, so you don't have to do anything but turn it on and fund it. That's the nice thing. You then can optionally chat with the agent itself locally about what it's doing, etc. But the agent will just do its thing. So what does the agent do? Once you've funded it and turn it on, it will effectively start looking for the markets. We've learned from OmenStrat, which is this similar concept on Omen on Gnosis, what kind of markets lend themselves for these sort of AI agent based approaches to prediction market participation. And so we have restricted, as the developers, the set of markets that the agents will even look at. I don't know those off the top of my head, but you can find it in the code base, which is all open source. And what then happens is that the agents look at these markets, they apply a number of heuristics around like the liquidity, how long this market is still open. Like markets that are very close to closing are not interesting for Polystrat or OmenStrat agents because their edge is in effectively leveraging AI and predicting the future, not in exploiting like short-term inefficiencies in the market, right? So like if a market's about to close, maybe the information about its resolution is already available somewhere. It becomes all a little messy for our agents, so they don't bother. They don't look at markets that are younger than closing in an hour or less. And so once a bunch of heuristics, there's others, again, open source code base, point your AI agent at it and coding agent and ask it some questions. But high level, that's the first step. And then the agent has made a decision whether it actually in principle is interested in a market or not. And it will leverage basically just large language models to make a decision or like kind of retrieve a probability as to how that market will resolve and with what confidence. We've structured this as a set of tools. So the agent has ability to a lot of different prediction tools that all kind of take as input the market and provide as output these like probabilities, confidence, but a bunch of other information that the agent then can use. And these tools do things differently. So some will literally delegate all responsibility to the model and literally just say, that's the market, what's the outcome? Others will do large amount of web search, compress that information in some way into the prompt, pass it to the model, and then there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. So again, for the interested listeners, please do look at the code. That's the best place to find out. And then once the agent has these pieces of information, it applies a number of trading algorithms to basically size its bet and make even the final decision whether to enter market. So let's say if the market is if the market is very close to 1 or 0, which would be 100% or 0%, even if you have a high confidence which way it's resolving, it's harder to make a lot of money and very easy to lose a lot of money. So these agents will often not engage. If the market is sort of more in the middle, let's say between 20-80% or whatever these soft cutoffs are, it will leverage that intelligence in order to size its bet appropriately for that kind of confidence that it has in the directionality, and then it will place that bet on chain, right? And so the agent does all this like autonomously. So you funded it, and it will take your capital to take those positions, and then you effectively wait a few days, and it will resolve. But in this time, you obviously keep running your agent. So the default funding suggestions, if you follow them, then your agent will not place all of this capital on day one. It will sort of nicely spread it over time and sort of use that also to build conviction in how the certain tools perform. So we have a local reinforcement learning algorithm that the agent uses in order to update how it thinks like the tool performance went in prior markets, and then we'll sort of lean into tools that worked well for it. Those are sort of high level principles. But this is also an evolving and open source code base, so we welcome contributions. So if, let's say, you go to the code base with your coding agent or yourself and you find out that there's some optionality for improvement, then please, contribute it. The long story short of it all is that the agent basically converts an edge that's available in the sort of general intelligence of those models into a position in the market.
Yeah, I think these are exciting times indeed. I mean, if people did not believe in the theory of evolution, like this, like the next 30 years, let's say, will be crucial to see whether the evolution is real, because the human behavior in general will change quite a lot. And this brings me to my last point, and we can recap here, because this has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation for me especially. And I wanted to ask you, what is the ultimate hope for how this technology can change the human experience, but so that we don't just create a new digital dependency, right? But just maximize human freedom in a way.
Yeah, I love your last question. So we are building what I would consider, without being self-deprecating, like toy-like AI agents right now that are very niche, specific to certain customer segments' needs, and that do well there. Where we want to get to is have your like general fully owned AI agent, general intelligence, fully owned AI agent that's capable in a lot of domains, but where you're in control. Because that's what I want. I don't want to, keep renting, and then every time I'm like interacting with, let's say, my coding agents, which I like, I'm giving more of my humanity to some model provider who can resell it to the others, right? I want to start accruing value in my own agent. I want to build up like a coexistence with it where it can have some of my, unique insights and my edge and can leverage that in the market. And I want everyone else to be able to be in that position. I think that's like a symbiotic, healthy way of growing up with tech, where it like kind of enables everyone to grow their capabilities rather than a select few who then resell it to you and eventually not because they don't have to anymore. So that's where I want to get to, is like make AI like yours and make it customizable to you. So that's also when you asked me earlier where we want to go next. It's like we're really thinking hard. Like, okay, now we have this sort of starting point of the story. It's cast. People can use the stuff, but now we need to level up to get to a place where we can take on the big guys with our approach, so that you can truly own the best AI agent that you could ask for fully. Like that's got to be the end game.
Well, thank you so much, David, for all of these insightful comments and answers, and thank you again for allocating the time to join us today. And potentially in the future, when we have another episode, we can have like an AI agent joining us as well.
Yeah,
right?
let's see. I mean, that's one of my pet use cases, which I kind of find interesting, is a social one where you have your AI agent. All of us have an AI agent, and they go talk to each other. And because the software, it's feasible that all of them talk to each other, right? Which would be never feasible for all humans to do. And you can create a number of connections that are just phenomenal, right? And that will bring society forward in ways that are not possible without that technology. So here's a use case that's clearly enabled by this kind of technology. That's very like kind of futuristic and very exciting.
That does sound like social media on steroids on my eyes. So.
I think it's the opposite of social media. Social media makes you a consumer without choice, really. Like you think you have choice, but really the algorithm selects what you see. Whereas here, it's your agent. Like this is this is why it has to be you. OpenAI already told you they're gonna put ads in there, and then Anthropic did a little thing that they're gonna not put ads, but eventually they have to, economic pressure. So ads will be there, and if you don't own it, it's not your agent. So this thing will like tell you whatever. It's the same thing as with social media. If it's yours, you can build up this relationship with them and actually make it reflect sort of who you are. Like it can, maybe one day, I don't know, for longevity folks, like it can actually be you. I don't know if that's possible, maybe. But different debate. But in the meantime, it can represent you in a different way than no centrally offered technology can, because they intrinsically do not have the interest of representing you as you. They have a totally different interest that's not aligned with you. And so once you have your own agent, everyone else does, that is possible. In the other world, it's not. In the other world, it is, like you say, like a even shittier version of the kind of social media that already enslaves people and makes them unhappy and whatnot.
All right. Okay. David, thank you very much again. I mean, we would love to have you again on the podcast. Probably even, if possible, somewhere on site if we ever meet. And yeah, thank you for allocating your time, and good luck with everything. And I'm probably gonna be one of the most active users of Polystrat.
Love it.
From now on.
Give us feedback, we'll make it better.
Yep. I will.
Awesome.
All right then.
Thanks for your time, both.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
That was really, really good. We always say this.
The future is
Dystopian.
a woman.
Oh yeah. No, for real. When we talk, I wanna again talk about Polystrat, because do you think it will make prediction markets obsolete? Like, what if 90% of prediction market daily active users will be AI agents, and they will just like look for the best odds and just technically it will be manipulating the market to their own,
Yeah.
selfish needs and with the goal of winning. Am I making sense?
You're making perfect sense, and yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to expect. And that's why I said like we'll be seeing whether human evolution is real because
Yeah.
there's so many things evolving and the tech side that will definitely impact human behavior.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can already see like people. Have you seen those memes of the guy with a pickaxe?
Yeah.
That's how it feels to even write a prompt today.
Oh yeah.
You know, let alone write the entire thing your own. So on your own. So it's crazy, and let alone on different activities such as trading. I was never a good trader, so if I can find an AI agent that does good trades for me, has a good success rate, and then I sell that AI agent
Your soul. Technically.
for 10x profit, and if AI agents do have become sentient and start to have some sort of legal standing, and I do sell my AI agent, what happens then?
I think it's really messed up. I mean, it's a pickle.
I think we should like pivot the podcast and talk about AI slavery in the future.
Pickle up, yeah. Yeah, I think no, I don't want to do that, man. Did you hear me talking about buying AI workers and lending them out so they can find their own jobs, work for people, and then pay me?
Yeah,
That sounds really messed up when you think about it.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, what if I buy an AI agent that does the work for me,
Exactly.
that does a good work, and then I manage to convince someone to buy it for
Or you don't
more
even-
than I.
Yeah, but
bought.
you don't even have to sell it because it's working for different companies and giving you its salary. Do you know what I'm trying to say here? Because
Yeah.
you're hosting it on your own, let's say, devices. It's crazy. I don't even.
But
wanna
then
think
you will
about
have like today we have different classes of people on a financial sense, and then you will be able to tell someone's class based on
it. How many AI agents?
the capability of his or her AI agent, right?
Man, I don't
It's
even wanna
it's
talk
messed
about
up.
this.
Like
It's
this
really
is literally like opening a new school of thought, new industries, new everything. Like it's I don't even know what to think about it.
We need the philosophers back, guys. We need them back, and we need them fast. This is going. This is going to be really interesting. All right. Thank you very much again. It was really, really nice to record this episode with David. We're looking forward to the next one.